Welcome to episode 9 of the Fitasylum podcast. Today's episode is a special episode with Harry, all about a subject that he's very passionate about, stress reduction. Harry, what is it about stress reduction that you're so passionate about?
Well, for me personally, I've had to make some changes in my life after doing meditation and different exercises to try and reduce my stress, manage different lifestyle, and I found some really positive effects on my own personal life and how I live my life, you would say. So I kind of just want to share that with everyone. It's something I'm just really interested about, that I've learned a lot about, read about it. I just enjoy it, really, to be honest. I just want to share it. Why not?
Awesome, yeah. Why not share your knowledge and enlighten people, help people? And that's what we try and do pretty much daily in our jobs.
Yeah.
What is stress? I genuinely couldn't answer this.
Yeah, well, stress is a funny one. So it's like a broad term, stress, isn't it, really? But essentially it's a stimulus that's placed on the body or the mind, whereby the body has to go, right, I need to do something about this. A physiological change caused by a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol, what it does do, it's quite incredible, really. It initiates the sympathetic nervous system to generate a response like releasing adrenaline, which we've seen before, like into like flight and flight. That pumps blood around the body to the extremities like your arms and your legs, makes you run faster, makes your muscles tense up, makes you stronger, faster, fitter, which is great if you're outside doing a run, right? But not if you're in the office trying to do some work and concentrate. So it's a bit of
that could be like seen as like a panic attack or an anxiety attack.
Yes. So very commonly you might feel those sense of feeling of adrenaline and that sympathetic nervous system firing, which makes you feel shortness of breath, increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, which are signs of anxiety and panic attacks. Very true.
So we teach about common medical conditions, and when we talk about stress, we usually talk about it as a feeling of being overwhelmed. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I always give you an analogy of being a bucket that's overflowing. So when you're too stressed and the cortisol levels are too high, essentially you filled your bucket too much, and you need to pierce some holes in that bucket, otherwise you're going to overflow pretty quick. So you need to be able to release and relieve some of that stress in your daily life in order to manage it, because unfortunately stress doesn't go away. You know, it's there. It will always be there. So it's not about getting rid of stress, because you can't. It's about reducing stress, hence the name stress reduction.
And this is not on the show notes, but can different people handle stress differently? And can they have more stress or less stress than other people?
Yeah, I always think it's about the whole balance of their lifestyle. So when someone's handling stress in a certain situation, you need to maybe take into account how else they live their life, because it's a complete balanced, holistic approach. Yeah, at work they may be very stress reduced or whatever you want to call it, but maybe in their personal life they're quite chilled, maybe they don't do a lot of screen time, maybe they're all balanced in activities they do. It's the cumulative effect.
Nice. And I think you see that with a lot of things. It's all about a cumulative effect and consistency.
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot in training. What are the most common causes of stress then?
Yeah, there's a lot of causes. So even just doing exercise is a cause of stress, but also it's a stress reliever, so they play into different parts of it. But often the sense of being asked to do something, and you get overwhelmed, you get confused, that'll heighten the sense of cortisol, because that body's going, right, I need to do something here to change how I'm reacting to this, therefore pushing blood different ways, increasing heart rate, blood pressure to help you cope with the sense of stress on your body. So different stressful situations could even just be that someone's asked you to do something at work and you don't quite know how to do it.
I always tell my students actually about training is a form of stress, and that's why deloads are so important.
Yeah, it's a stimulus, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, it's a stimulus. And if that person is already stressed, then it's going to drastically affect their training, it's going to drastically affect their sleep and recovery. It's going to have lots and lots of effects on the body. Some not so good, or mostly not so good. Some of them can be good, because obviously you might be able to deal with stress a little bit better the more you deal with it.
If you're working out in the gym, doing high intensity workouts, that's probably more stressful than maybe going for a walk.
Yeah.
So there are different exercises that have different stress inducing levels. So if you're always working at high intensity workouts or heavy weights or overload progression, which you would do as a PT,
100%.
You need to then build in a way to reduce that stress levels post-exercise.
Yeah. It's like a deload week or recovery or rest. It's all those sort of things. And we actually put a post out on the stories, guys, about a week ago when me and Harry discussed this podcast, and we put what is a common cause of stress for yourself? And we got some funny responses.
Golf swing. Was that
that was the one I mentioned. That was from Sam, actually. Golf swings. So some people can be frustrated by whatever sport they're doing, but also there were some really serious ones like money issues, childcare issues. People, like one of them that surprised me was worried about if their child's going to get into the high school they wanted to do. So it's really interesting because I would never thought that as a worry or a stress because I don't have children. Where when I think about it, I can relate and empathise a little bit more.
Do you know what? There's a common factor to everything you just said there.
Yeah.
And it's the sense of control.
Yes.
So when people don't have a sense of control, the stress levels rise, and the inability to cope with what they perceive to be the problem and not have any effect on it causes stress levels. So when we talk about ways to reduce stress, it's also about maybe letting go of that sense of control as well.
That lack of control is definitely something that has stressed me out in the future. In the past, sorry.
Yeah.
People would like say I'm quite a bossy person whenever I play sport, whether it be playing football. I would be classed as like someone who'd be like telling people what to do, and I guess I've only literally just realised this second that it's probably down to wanting that control.
Yeah, even in team sports, you want to control the outcome of the result.
Yeah, exactly.
But in a team, you can't do that. You can only control maybe the actions that you take or the responses that you have towards someone else.
So it's having trust in everyone else to be able to
Trust, consistency,
perform.
Relationships, communication. It all works into the team stuff.
It's very interesting. And what are the effects of stress then, more localized?
Yeah, well, I mentioned some before, like increased heart rate,
Yep.
Increased blood pressure. Because if you think about just from poor physiological effect, if you're pumping blood around the body, it has to increase the rate of it, therefore blood pressure, how much blood's going through the arteries at once, that's what blood pressure is. Increased in heart rate, yes, you might have headaches or poor digestion as a result of the blood being pumped around to your arms and legs. So if you think about it, you need to use your arms and legs to run, walk, think, do. So when it's pushing that away from the digestive system, your digestive ability is going to slow. You're going to pass food a lot slower, causing inflammation to your gut. So stress is heavily linked to IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, because your blood's it's being pushed away from the digestive system and then it's not functioning correctly or slower, causing inflammation.
But I suppose that could be for a number of different areas as well. If you're pulling blood into, say, other areas, like you might need it for your muscles if you're training, then again it might have an effect on it.
It does, yeah. Digestion is affected by a lot of things, which is why rest is really important, because you need that homeostasis effect or just like normal state of affairs to be activated for you to rest.
It's very interesting, actually. What are the changes to reduce stress? Like, what changes can we make, and what changes will you see when you are stressed?
Yeah, it's little and often, really. So, particularly if you're working a job, stress is always going to be there present. So it's about what you do in response to that, I always say. So taking regular breaks during the working day, going outside, getting fresh air, taking a walk can also reduce it. The act of it is to really activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your relaxing state of your nervous system. So you can do that by walking your dog, seeing friends in a cafe, catching up socially. They always say a big thing with depression and anxiety is spending a lot more time with your friends and activating your life force, which would be to speak to people, communicate, chat, just to get along socially without anything serious being talked about. So you can do little stuff like that. If it's work-based, then I'd recommend time management apps like To-Do List or Outlook, where you can colour code your diaries, set priority lists. Setting priorities for me it was a big change in terms of, right, I got a to-do list, I know what I'm going to do, but when am I going to do it, how am I going to do it, and who do I need to speak to achieve it? So setting clear priorities about, right, I'm going to do this first, I'm going to do this last, I'm going to achieve this. Small wins in your day will help you feel more motivated and happy and relaxed in your working life as well.
It's really funny. I've done a lot of these little different things, probably not to the same extent you're discussing here, but just like trying to help myself. So it might be like, I remember getting a gratitude diary, which really helped. I remember doing, I still do the priority lists. I have an app on my phone called One Journal, which is really good, or One Day. It's really good because you can set out like your day, you can set your own template of what's important to you. Yeah. So for instance, it might be what's the key job today, or what do you want to achieve? Yeah. And I've tried to take this in with my clients. So some of them on True Coach, I'll set them, what are you looking forward to today? What was your biggest win yesterday? Those sort of things. And it really does help with their mindset and de-stresses them. Yeah. I remember going back to high blood pressure. Yeah. Someone said, I used to be a little bit confused with it when I was at college. My tutor explained it to me as, imagine driving a car really, really fast. It's more likely to break than if you drove it, say, really slow. And he said that's the difference between high blood pressure. Because I used to say, how's it going to affect a client, basically?
Yeah. Well, it's the force applied through your arteries. You imagine the flow of blood. Yeah, wear and tear, 100%. Because over time, when you get older, those arteries will degrade and become less useful in a way, I guess. Probably a better term for it out there, I'm sure. But, when something breaks down and degrades, effects are going to happen.
And when you talk about time away from work,
Yes.
say if we're talking on a day-to-day basis, what does that look like?
Yeah, do you know what? It can honestly be little small changes. So if you've had a meeting on Teams or Zoom, then take a break away from the computer, walk to your kitchen, get a glass of water, come back in and go again before you start a new task. Because that stress from a phone call or a Teams call will then pass over into your work. So just take a little mind break, a little quick break. I'm talking about a minute, really.
You actually taught me about this, like kind of indirectly a few months ago, because I was blocking out like a full day to do marking, and you were saying to me like, no, try and break it up maybe throughout the week so that it's not as tedious, it's not as like draining. So trying to do different tasks. So would you say doing different tasks within one day would be like advisable? Yeah,
definitely. So don't think that a task's going to take a whole day, because motivational wise that's going to lower your spirit levels. So you want really quick wins at the start of the day. This is how I would do it. Quick wins at the start of the day, like sending emails out, doing a bit of admin, and then a big chunk of work in the morning. Because for me, I'm a morning person, so I get my big win out of the day, and then sort of afternoon wise I'm again doing more admin, but then maybe a low level task, low functioning task where I'm not a little bit tired, I've had a bit of food, I'm less motivated. So structuring your day and time management will lower the stress, because you've got a plan, you've got a habit, and you've got a target of what you want to do.
No, I think that's really good as well. And it kind of clears out your mind, so then it's there on paper, and you're not going, oh, I've still got that job. Because I know for me, I'll be like, I've still got to go and do the shopping. Still got to go and do the shopping. And it might come to like late at night, and I'm like, I've not got to do the shopping. All day you're worried about it, because you've got something to do. And you're stressed out because
you're like, when am I going to do the shopping now? Because I've run out of time. But if you put it down on the list, it's not always exciting things you've got to do, but it helps you to, like you say, clear your mind.
I think on your list as well, sometimes like, I look at it and go, well, actually, that's probably too much today. I can't do all that. So then you might manage that list, and over time, I know with this job in particular, I've worked out that I might set myself a clear target, but it just might not be achievable, and you end up getting stressed about it. So then maybe trying to work out how to manage that and what is achievable within a certain period of time. If you lay it out in the night before or the morning, it can be really beneficial. Other kind of key changes that you can make? Yeah,
I think the biggest one and the biggest effect on your own life and your personal life is to meditate.
Really?
So I've said it a few times to different people who have asked me before, but meditation is probably one of the biggest things biggest positive impacts you can have. So just by sitting 10 minutes a day, honestly can say will change your life, and how you, instead of react to something, you start to respond. And that mental space or clarity allows you to deal and handle situations a lot better, including stressful situations.
That's really interesting. It is actually. Any other tips on kind of like key changes clients could make, or students could make, or other professionals?
The biggest thing really is to plan in social events in your diary, something to look forward to, something to motivate you. That could be a date night with your partner, if that's something that you want to do. Maybe spend time with your friends and family members. But if you plan it in, a lot of times when you're looking ahead and you're thinking, actually, I've got nothing to look forward to, now you've got a diary full of things you're looking forward to. So it makes those little harder things a lot easier, knowing you've got something to look forward to.
That's really interesting. I had an ADHD nurse really help me with my ADHD, and she said to me, you're not very good at like contacting your friends and family deck. So like if you plan it in, then at least it's in there and you know to do it, because it's something that you would commonly forget. And I thought that was really, really helpful for me, and I have found that useful, and it sounds like something that could be very useful for other people as well. So planning in social events, seeing friends, family. But why does that help? Like, how does it help?
Well, stress is like a build-up of activity or stimulus. When you're going for a coffee with your friends, or even just sat watching TV, there's no stimulus being applied to you. You're allowed to take a mental break, and that again will activate that parasympathetic nervous system, allow you to rest and recover and lower your cortisol levels. It's ultimately about lowering your cortisol levels, but
it's very interesting. We talk about this a lot in training. When you kind of cool a client down, or they've had a really heavy session, such as like a 1 RM day or a rep max day or some sort of testing, always bring the body back down to parasympathetic, so then we can put it into a recovery state as soon as possible. So then we can start to train again. So it's really interesting how it links together.
Same in daily life. Even if you're not an athlete and if you're not a client, it works for everything. You need to go into a rest state at some point. If you're constantly at a heightened sense of stress, eventually you're going to get depression and anxiety long term. So depression's long term. Anxiety attacks, panic attacks, you're going to feel dehydrated, you're going to feel tired all the time constantly, because you imagine that level of cortisol in your body causing a heightened state of awareness at all times. It's going to be draining.
Yeah, so it's like that. I guess it's like that feeling when you go to bed and you can't turn your brain off.
Yeah, alert phase, isn't it? Alert,
Yeah,
like
all
you're
the
always
time.
alert.
That's really
constantly.
interesting because Gary Vaynerchuk, especially like in like 2015, I remember watching a lot of him, and he was like, "Oh no, you shouldn't be watching TV or you shouldn't be doing anything like that." And I really struggled to like settle down at night, and even now to a degree, sometimes I do. It's like that switching off.
Yeah.
So why would you switch off, and what sort of benefits and any kind of recommendations would you give people?
Well, the biggest thing I do before bed to shut down is basically put sleep mode on my phone.
Yep.
So I set my bedtime for an hour before I actually go to sleep, which means basically no one can ring you or call you except emergencies, because you can put your people in your list. So you're getting no notifications, you're getting no stimulus.
No emails.
No emails, no messages, no Instagram, shut off your social media, and really have that moment where you can engage that parasympathetic nervous system. You need that setting and that time.
But something very just simple to watch might be good, or read. Yeah. Obviously reading would probably be preferable. But like even like a lot of people say like maybe following sports teams or watching TV can be seen as a waste of time. But actually you're saying this could be really good for someone who helps them bring them back down to parasympathetic.
Yeah, because again, you're disengaging mentally in terms of like you're not having to think about doing anything. There's no stimulus being applied mentally. You're just watching it, you're enjoying it, and you're getting relaxed. Yeah, you might get hyped up about who's going to win or lose, but really you're disengaging mentally from all the other tasks, the 1,000,001 things you've got to do tomorrow.
Which I think in this society, in this day and age, we do have a lot of things to do. There's a lot more on our plate than say 20 years ago.
There's a lot of expectations on people, and I think social media heightens that level of expectation as to, well, I want to be like that other person, I want to match up to them. So you put expectations on yourself, and that in itself is a stress. So disengaging from social media, I would also say
expectation management.
Expectation management.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's what I was trying to convey earlier with how much you can get done in a day. So some really good takeaways there: sleep mode, exercising, spending time with family and friends, make sure you're taking time out of work when you can, managing your time with like lists and priorities, and just making sure that it's appropriate, managing expectation. Application to clients. So if you're a PT, how can people apply it to clients? Because obviously as part of a personal trainer, you want to really help the client, and if they come in stressed already, that's a stress on their body, that's a stimulus. You're adding more stress by training them or helping them work out. So how can we manage that for clients?
I think this is a big one in the industry, because a lot of PTs now need to become lifestyle managers and coaches, right? Because it's not just about that hour you're with them, it's about making sure they do the right things or positive steps throughout all the other 7 days of the week. So helping them and giving them tips and hints on how to do that. But the first thing is you need to be able to be aware of the signs and symptoms of stress. So some of the stuff I listed before about like low mood, motivation, poor nutrition, because that's a sign that they're not quite being careful of what they do. They're not motivated mentally, not engaged mentally. A lot of the times maybe they've lost strength, because that's a physiological effect of the nervous system being down-regulated. So looking out for these signs and symptoms is big. You can do that, I guess, from daily check-ins. You're speaking to your client every day, right?
I like, my philosophy was always to kind of like, if I use True Coach, they could check in every day, and it might be like a different mental stimulus each month. So like I've talked already about maybe doing a gratitude journal, what they're excited for, things they're looking forward to, things that they've done well, usually on a day-to-day basis. And then weekly, I'd usually do a check-in with them. How was this week's training? What did you do well? What didn't go so well? How's your recovery? I think sleep and recovery are massive, especially around this area of stress.
Sleep's a big indicator of stress, because if you're losing sleep and you're too alert at night time, you can't get back to sleep, those are signs of stress. Those are signs that the stimulus is too high, and you need to find a way to reduce that.
Heart rate variation.
Huge.
That's usually how we track it in clients.
If you want a more scientific approach, you can use a questionnaire called POMS, or Profile of Mood State. So this is an official questionnaire whereby they would literally tell you on a different range of questions what their mood is associated to that activity. And then you can gauge a trend and see, right, well, what mood was I in this day, that day, that day? And if there's a common trend, you know that there's some effects that you can take place.
So I think if you're a PT listening to this, you could really incorporate this into like a community feel. So you could like once a week ask your client to fill this out, or every day for a week and kind of average it out. And it'd be a really good indicator on where they are mentally. And you could do it every kind of quarter, every 3 months, something like that. It'd be really, really
You might be able
beneficial.
to even find out what day they're more stressed.
Yeah,
and then
100%.
on that day, don't train on the days where you're less stressed, and so you can therefore manage it. It helps you to plan out and see trends in the data.
100%. And you've talked a little bit about physical changes. So what sort of physical changes can someone experience through stress?
Yeah, well, there's definitely the high blood pressure, the increased heart rate, but also just more feeling tired, feeling really lethargic, maybe mental brain fog, people called it, or I would say mental clarity.
Just
and
tired.
Feeling tired, so like when you're tired, you make random decisions, and I mean that in the sense that if you've got space in your mind and mental clarity, you tend to take a minute before you respond, and you tend to start reacting. So that person might start reacting to stuff where they didn't before. Irritability being like a sign of that. So when someone's acting differently or in some of those ways I just described, then that might be a sign of stress, or too much stress, I would say.
Very, very interesting. In terms of making changes to help yourself and your client, what sort of things would you recommend and how would you go about it?
Yeah, in terms of your clients, you might have to then impart some physical changes for them in terms of deloads, like you were saying, rest weeks, meditation, mindfulness. So there's apps like Mind, there's Headspace, where they can actually go on and meditate for 10 minutes at a time to reduce the cortisol levels. Planning the sleep app on there to make sure the sleep's on, the focus. And
Apple Watches always have mindfulness now, don't they?
Apple Watch has a mindful minute.
Take mindfulness every morning and night, which I think is a very good initiative.
Yeah, and with clients, you obviously have to be more literal and has to be a smart target attached to it. With us, we can do it randomly, but with our clients, we need to say, right, on your weekly report, you spend 3 hours on your phone every day. By 6 months, I want you to take that down to 2 hours per day. So they're only spending an hour less per day on their phone. And imagine what you could do with an extra hour per day.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good way. It's kind of like a trade-off. And when they say to you, I don't have time to meal prep, well,
you got an extra
less
hour
time on your phone. So it's giving people time back, and I think if people could pay for time, they definitely would. Yeah,
and you'd pay for being more mentally clear and have more space in your brain to make more functional decisions. Like you'd pay for that 100%.
So how can people start meditating? Like, is there something online that you would recommend? Is there, like, I know you've mentioned, is it Mind and Headspace?
Yeah. Headspace is definitely the easiest one because it's free to access and they're very short. So what I'd recommend is you sit in a very comfortable chair. You just put your arms on your legs and basically you close your eyes. And the best way really is to count to 10. This is how I started. So close your eyes, count to 10 and go. In the in-breath, count to 1. Out-breath, count to 2. And you do that until you get to 10. And most likely your mind will wander and you just need to keep coming back to the count. So you might lose count. If you do, just start again. And you just rinse and repeat.
It's interesting. We did box breathing, which is obviously something very similar. In terms of making changes for clients, we've talked about programming it in. But say you've not got like a programming app and the client comes to see you on the day, how would you test if they're stressed?
Yeah, well, it's those questions, it's the daily check-in, it's the physical check-in, looking at them. And you know your clients right better than anyone else. So if they're lifting on the bench press a certain amount and this week they can't, or they've lost 5 kilograms, and they do that consistently.
The stimulus is too high, or through stress or through training.
Yes, you need to really think about, okay, well, is the program right for them? Do I need to take a deload a week? The nervous system.
Are we asking them to do too many days?
Yes, the nervous system will shut down when there's too much stress applied.
That is very, very interesting. In terms of the CPD that you've done recently with Fitasylum Academy, do you want to talk a little bit about that? What's involved in it? What people get out of it?
Hopefully a lot of you have already seen now we've launched our Fitasylum Academy 3 CPD platform, whereby we're launching CPDs, short videos and quizzes and then certificates attached, whereby you can learn more like stress reduction. So all the stuff here, you can learn more in more detail. We've done how to become an online PT with yourself. We've done common conditions and also a popular one, which is pre and postnatal nutrition, which I know Jasmine, one of our tutors, is really passionate about herself. So we're looking to launch more content, and it is free to the point of access.
So with us looking to launch more content, guys, get in the comments, let us know if there's any specific free CPD courses you'd like us to deliver. Also, let us know if there's anyone else you'd like to get on the podcast. Very thankful for Harry to come in today and talk about a subject that he's very passionate about, stress reduction. And I just want a couple of tips for people to take away. So if you give them one tip for how to become less stressed, what would it be?
The biggest tips is to take more breaks.
Take more breaks.
That's something you can do right now, this second, to take a break from what you're doing.
And one tip for all our PTs that we teach, how could they incorporate this with clients?
Be aware, you see your clients every single day, be aware of what they look like, what they say to you and what they're doing in the gym. Don't treat it as if, oh, it's just another session. Be very aware of how that person presents in front of you, because you might miss something. And if you do miss it, you get an opportunity, you miss out on an opportunity.
Awesome. And I'm just looking at Cal. Can we put some links down below on Mind, Headspace and POMS? Can you get POMS online?
Yeah, I'll get you a link for POMS, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, guys. So head down below into the description. You'll be able to see all the links for some apps that we recommend, some websites that we recommend for further education. And, you might want to take some of the POMS tests yourself. Highly recommend doing the test yourself first and then getting your clients to do it. And it could be an added service that you add on to your clients. And I think they'd really appreciate it, that you care about their well-being. And I think it's a topic that's going to definitely grow, especially with the growth of mental health and depression and things like that. So any final words, Harry?
No, I enjoyed that. That was great. Happy to talk more in the future if people want it.
Yeah, guys, so let us know if you would like more on this, and go and check out our free CPDs. Again, the link will be in the description. The Fitasylum Academy. It's on Teachable, so if you have an iPhone, you'll be able to access it via apps or via the App Store, and it's a fantastic learning resource for some free CPDs. And you can get certificates so you can show your employer that you are developing consistently.